much do interns make in Australia? Well, I'm going to tell you in this video. Hello, I'm Anthony. I'm the career doctor. I make videos to help you manage your medical career here on YouTube. So if you like what you're seeing, leave a like below, or maybe leave a comment and think about subscribing and turning on notifications. So one of the questions I'm often asked by doctors, particularly doctors from other countries, is how well or how much are doctors paid in Australia? So we're coming up to the time of the year in Australia where new interns commence in the system. That's the newly graduated doctors doing their first paid job in the hospital system generally. So I thought it'd be a good time to review what the intern salaries and pays look like here in Australia, and the results might surprise you a little bit. So once you review this information, I'd invite you to leave a comment below. I'm anticipating there might be a little bit of discussion about this. If you're an Australian doctor and you want to comment on the rates of pay in your particular state, for example, leave a comment. Or if you're a doctor from another country, maybe you'd like to share with us what the pay and conditions are like for doctors in your own country so we can compare and contrast. Now, the information I've got for you here is taken from publicly available sources from the internet, usually government or health services sites, and it's taken from January 2019. So I've done my very level best to get you the most accurate information. But remuneration does change over time, and it can vary from state to state and territory to territory. So if in particular you are a representative of a state health service or a state health department and want to help correct a piece of information, feel free to contact me. What I'll do is leave a link to a blog post about all this information with all of the rates of pay and the reference sources for you in the description below, as well as ways of getting in touch with me. So you can see here that the rates of pay, and we're talking here the annual baseline salary for intern doctors in Australia, vary quite significantly by over $10,000 on an annual basis. From New South Wales, which pays the lowest at $67,950, to Western Australia, which pays the best at $78,479. Again, these tables will be linked to a blog post below where you can go and have a look at the figures and the reference sources. Now, bear in mind that these are rates of pay for the base hours that someone works on a full-time basis, so 40 hours a week. And pay rates for doctors do go up significantly because we all tend to work a few additional hours on a weekly basis, maybe 50, 60, in some cases a lot more, although we have been making an effort to reduce that in the last decade or so. So once you clock into overtime, pay rates do go up, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that more shortly. The reason for the large variation is that every state and territory have their own system for setting remuneration conditions. This is usually done through a process of arbitration, usually with some sort of industrial body as the independent umpire, and there's usually an award or an enterprise agreement that gives you an outline of all the conditions. These include things like the hours of employment, the sorts of leave that you can take, and of course how much you get paid. Doctors in Australia who are employed by public hospitals, like other public sector employees, don't generally contract on an individual basis, so everyone's on the same industrial instrument, the award or the agreement, and gets treated the same if you are on the same level. Now, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the full-time adult average annual ordinary earnings in 2018 was $82,752. So bearing in mind it takes at least 5 years of university study, if not more, and you accrue quite a considerable education debt in that time, we definitely can't consider interns extremely well paid. But it's not all that doom and gloom. Whilst interns don't work the extent of overtime and out of ordinary hours that they used to 10 or 20 years ago, they still do some overtime, and they do still accrue what's called some loadings, which you generally get for working, say, in an evening or a night time or on the weekend on a rostered basis. Generally speaking, in most states and territories, your overtime is paid usually at time and a half for a couple of hours and then double time. So if you're doing about 50 or 60 hours a week, even if you are in New South Wales, you're probably approaching that average full-time ordinary earnings quoted by the ABS. And of course it does go up rapidly from here. For example, by the time a doctor, after about 3 years, becomes what we call a registrar of specialty training in Victoria, they're earning over $105,000 per annum. And in New South Wales, once you become a specialist, in your first year, you can earn upwards of $234,000 per annum. A special bonus for interns is because most interns have not been earning a salary in the first half of the financial tax year, which runs from July to June in Australia. When it comes to tax time in your first year of being paid as an intern, you've actually probably paid quite a bit of extra tax that you didn't need to, so you get quite a nice bonus back from the tax office, but that's pretty much the only time that happens. So some interns try and maximise the amount of overtime they do before the 30th of June in their first year of employment. So what's going on in New South Wales? When I was an intern working in New South Wales, we had some of the best rates of pay in the country, and states like Western Australia are actually one of the worst places to work, at least from a pay remuneration perspective. Given that New South Wales is the biggest state in Australia by population and one of the richest states economically, and also given that Sydney is pretty much the most unaffordable city to live in Australia, this probably doesn't make a lot of sense. It's hard to know what the reason for this is, but probably one of the explanations is that the industrial organisations, the unions or the associations that represent trainee doctors in this country have probably been more effective at advocating for better rates and conditions for trainee doctors in other states and territories over the time. For example, if you look at the recent enterprise agreement in Victoria, it has lots of cool things in it like leave for exams, leave for conferences, internal training leave, as well as an allowance for trainee doctors for their continuing medical education. These are things that just don't exist in the New South Wales Award, which has probably not been touched in a significant manner since the 1980s. So there you have it. That's how much an intern earns in each state and territory of Australia. What do you think about this information? It probably depends on where you work. Are you happy that you've chosen to be a doctor in a state where the pay and condition is better than elsewhere? Or are you slightly annoyed that your state and territory comes somewhere towards the bottom of the list? Are there other things about your award or conditions that upset you or you think could be improved? Leave a comment below. Also, if you're from another country and you think we need a bit of a reality check here, let us know about what things are like for you when you work as an intern there. So probably the only thing left for me to do is say thanks for liking, like, comment, subscribe and turn on notifications, and I will see you in the next video.